Hi, I'm David Marsh, and welcome to Exploring the Human Journey.
Exploring the Human Journey.
Hi, and welcome. I'm so glad you joined us. Today, man, am I excited. I got Cynthia Beck on set today. She is amazing. She's a master hypnotist. We're going to have so much fun today. I got a chance to spend some time with her recently in Sedona, Arizona, and I want you to watch this video.
Reiki is a specific Japanese technique that uses hand signals, and I've built upon that with using crystals to help manage where the energy flows. So you might get a heavy crystal on your chest and some snowflake sitting around your feet to just sort of direct the flow of the energy as we're working together. And then I intuit as I'm looking at each of the chakras. I'll have images, and usually the images make sense to the person who is experiencing that. Sometimes I know things about their life or be able to help them balance a little bit. And I want to give people the power to run their own energy the way they want to run it. And so with each chakra that we balance, we do a visualization, and you might call it hypnosis because they're in a relaxed, focused state where they can see their chakras balancing correctly. Lots of people hold their energy outside of their bodies in order to interact with the world, and it's much better if you hold your energy inside your body, which is where it needs to be. A lot of the hypnosis that I do, it all starts the same way. We relax the body, because as the body relaxes, the mind relaxes, and a relaxed mind can visualize and focus better. And as Aristotle said, what the mind can imagine with a vivid imagination, the body is compelled to obey. And so from that state, we can work with emotional type issues. We can do early childhood work or inner critic work or coaching work. And we can even go back and shift the energy of negative experiences in childhood and even remove those memories so you're not running them in your head all the time. We can move into a beautiful spiritual place and have you connect with whatever spirituality means to you. And sometimes that means intuition. Sometimes that means just feeling loved for the first time. And sometimes that means a direct connection with the energy of the divine and merging with that so that you know what that feels like and you can carry it around with you. So there's a lot of ways to use the tool, and it's always wonderful.
Awesome. Cynthia, thank you so much for hosting us here in your house.
It's my pleasure, Dave.
Yeah.
It's always fun to talk to you, and I really appreciate your video work, so thank you for doing that.
Awesome. We're in Sedona, Arizona. It's beautiful here. Cynthia Beck has given us the opportunity to come and film in her house. So she's sitting in her chair in her house, and I'm glad we get to be here. So this is awesome. You've been in Sedona for a short period of time. Couple years-ish?
Yeah, couple years-ish, relatively. I was in the same zip code for 40 years before that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a new move for me. I trekked out when I was 59 years old, all by myself.
Yeah.
Took my entire savings and put it in a house in Sedona. We'll see how that works out.
Well, it's very bold. I mean, you just,
yeah.
You decided you had a vision for something you wanted to do, and you went and did it.
That, and I was escaping California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Sedona is a very interesting place, and I've never had this happen to me in a geography before, but people actually fall in love with the energy here.
Oh.
And I grew up on the shores of Lake Tahoe, which is a beautiful place, but it didn't feel like Sedona does to me.
Wow.
And so I really thought I was a little crazy, and most of my friends already knew that, so they weren't too worried.
Yeah, that's good.
But it was nice to come to Sedona and find out that a lot of people have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it. The energy brings a lot of people here.
Now, energy is something new to me. As you are aware of, I had a belief system that said that, there's a divine and you're a servant of sorts to that divine. When I started to grow away from that belief system, Sedona was something that was a different peculiar place to me, because people talk about energy and the flow
Yeah.
and talk about spirit, and that was always framed to me, if you didn't understand it, was the devil, or magical art, the black arts, or whatever that is.
Right.
But as I begin to continue to expand and open my mind, I'm like, consciousness wise, there's a lot of cool things going. There's people that are like, hey, we can help you. All those things that you've been holding so tight, we can help you with that. We can move that energy. And you're part of that healing modality that people have.
Right, because if you study physics, they haven't found the smallest particle, and everything is made up of waves of energy, everything.
Yeah.
So that means you and me, and that energy flows, and it can be assisted in that flow with a lot of different modalities. I believe that eventually science is going to be using energy to heal in a different way than we use it, but it is the basis of everything that we are.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I love the idea that we're energetic, because when you look at quantum electrodynamics, you see that at the very base reality, it's not an electron, it's a field of probability where that energy mass is located at.
That's exactly right. And we know that the human body has electricity. You have a heartbeat that is electric, and also your brain waves are electric, and they're not the same. So they don't do the same kind of thing. So we know that we have an electromagnetic field. And now there's new technology that can either see it or measure it. What it is and how important it is hasn't really been taken on by the mainstream yet, but it's getting more and more. I don't know, Marjorie Wolcott and her book. She's a neurologist and a meditator, and she began to understand that there was something else going on in the brain. It wasn't just a lump of mass. Actually, the brain's 3/4 water. Which is kind of interesting, because water conducts energy.
Yes, that's awesome.
It's an interesting concept. And so, she was looking at things like past life regressions, and people who came in with scars in the same place that they remembered a past life, and children who come in with memories, and also dementia, where the brain is actually broken apart and can't speak, but there's a moment of lucidity right before the soul or the energy moves into another dimension, and they can't explain it. It's not just matter. It's movement. It's energy.
That lucidity, I've read many accounts, the near-death experience type of account, but they're with a loved one, and then that loved one's been maybe Alzheimer's or some dementia, and then suddenly they sit up, they're like, hey, here, you need to do these things, put my affairs in order, you need to get whatever.
And their brain is basically not biologically functional.
You can't function at all, but yet now they're completely coherent, and that's a wonderful phenomenon of consciousness.
And then they pass. Right?
And then it's
That's a very interesting thing. I think that the thing that started me on my journey was that I lost a parent as a teenager. And it was my dad, and he had his own business, and my father was a very powerful man, and he employed most of North Tahoe in some way, shape, or form. And, I was a daddy's girl, and he was the center of my universe, and all of a sudden he's gone. Where the hell did he go?
Wow.
Where did he go? What happened here?
What was the narrative you had? What did you think had happened?
Oh, it's interesting. My parents didn't really like religion, and my father said, I live by the 10 Commandments, and for the most part he did. My mother was raised in a pretty dysfunctional religious situation. She wouldn't have anything to do with any of it. So for me, I was pretty lost at that point. I didn't have a starting context. I just had this emptiness. And so I did what was done in my family. When you were happy or sad, I started drinking. Yeah.
Wow.
And my dad died when I was just 19, and by the time I was 26, I had drank the entire quota of alcohol that God gave me for my whole life.
Wow, that's definitely a way to put it.
It was a lot, right? And so, by the grace of God, at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting for somebody else, and heard a woman tell my very story. And the next day I had my last Michelob, And that was 35 years ago.
Wow.
But AA was a spiritual program where you got to connect with the energy as you defined it.
Yeah.
It wasn't defined for you, except that you had to ask for, care with abandon. You really had to surrender to this spiritual part of both your body and your mind in order to stay sober. And so that was part of my process. But I'd always loved religions. I'd always loved sitting in churches. My mother thought I was an anomaly. What is wrong with you?
Wow.
And I'm a life path 7 in numerology, which is the sage that goes to the mountain and reads everything and comes back down with a message. Numerology actually made me make sense to myself.
Yep.
It's
so interesting because I grew up in a religious context and I raised my kids in that. And when they got old, they're like, we're out. And a lot of people, it's the opposite. So
it is interesting.
I've heard a lot of people that had no religious context at all. They're like, the way they rebelled was by going to church.
Right.
The way my siblings rebelled was by not going to church, and I stayed in that paradigm for a long time.
Well, for me, it wasn't a rebellion. I'd always felt the energy. And maybe that was growing up at Tahoe. I spent a lot of time alone in the forest and the rocks and the trees and talking to the creek as a little kid. So there wasn't a pressure either way, except I went to boarding school the last 2 years of high school, and I loved that because I was away from a town where everybody knew my father and I couldn't get in any trouble.
Oh, boy.
But also I met the first liberated women I ever knew, and that was the Dominican Sisters in 1972. They're running hospitals and schools, and they're spiritual people, and they're taking their habits off, and they're breaking protocol. And the women that I was with in that school were very smart. And so I really loved some of the ritual of Catholicism and the comfort of it. And I wanted to, was looking at actually joining the order, and my mother went nuts.
Oh, that's funny.
Because she didn't want my brother to have kids. He was sort of lost, and
wow.
she wanted grandkids. And if I became a religious sister, that wasn't going to happen. So they agreed to let me be baptized Catholic, but not confirmed. It wasn't part of her world, right?
That's good.
So, and that actually turned out to be a disservice to me, because when I got to college, I didn't really know enough about Catholicism to feel comfortable in the Catholic Church. And then when my dad passed, I didn't have any place to go. So I went to the bar.
Wow.
And that only worked for a little while.
Yeah.
You can't fill a God-sized hole with any human pleasure.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. Somewhere along your pathway, you found something that you were able to integrate into. Was that in the 20s, or was it later in your path?
No. It's a journey, and you have to sort of experience a little bit of this and a little bit of that. When I was going to AA, I started seeing a woman who was an ex-Mercy sister. She left the order and married her partner, and she was a spiritual director. And what she would do is put me in a relaxed, focused state. And in fact, the first meditation that we did today was one that she used to use. And then connect me with that divine energy. And I would interact with it. And I did that on and off while I got married and had the son that my mother wanted. And then 2 years later, she died. Yeah, I was orphaned by the time I was 39.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and the year after that, the perfect husband that she really thought I should marry left. And so I had a 4-year-old, and I was a single mother, and there really was no family support. Now, I would like to say that was the end of my journey, and I embraced God, and everything was fine, but I didn't.
No.
I got really mad.
Yeah.
And if I could do anything over, I went to therapy at that time, and my therapist kept me, sort of focused on the negativity. Some of it was perfect because I needed to know the context of my family and know that not everybody drank to celebrate and to grieve and all of that. And it did give me a deeper understanding of myself, but it was always talking about the negative. And the problem with that is it gets the brain stuck.
Yeah.
And the neurology starts to focus on negative things. And when a neuron fires with a negative thought, it sends chemicals to the next neuron telling him it's another negative thought is coming. And pretty soon you get stuck in this pattern and you're not able to really move through it. Plus, my ex-husband gave me a lot of reasons. He wasn't a bad person, but he remarried immediately.
Yeah.
And
that causes some internal trauma,
for me?
Self-worth, goals that you had that you couldn't accomplish.
Here's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought I was stupid to marry the man my mom thought I should marry.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was a match made in heaven. But I'm not sure at that point I even knew what love was. I didn't really know what that energy was like. And so I went about the task of single parenting. And when my son was with his dad, I'd do these retreats. And I went to hypnosis school on the weekends that my son was with his dad, and I did some silent retreats and there was a wonderful Buddhist meditation center in Marin County, and I did some long silent retreats there.
Cool.
So I was able to really explore, plus I was still seeing my spiritual director and still angry, honking at people in traffic and, trying to run my life and work and take care of this little boy. I didn't date much because really he was my focus. His dad had already remarried. I wasn't going to put him through that. As I said to you earlier, I won the kid lotto, so he's turned out okay.
Yeah.
But I think all of that angst, the grief of losing my mom, the grief of losing the marriage, when you lose a marriage, you find out who your friends really are, and that's always a surprise.
Wow.
It wore out my immune system, and I went sailing at Thanksgiving in Puerto Rico around the British Virgin Islands, and I came back with a virus that caused chronic fatigue, which was very maligned at that time. That was 2005. But I had flu-like symptoms that knock you on a couch for more than 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And my son got it too. And so I continued to, do the tools that I had, meditation and reading and hypnosis. And then I ran into Abraham Hicks.
Oh, yes.
And I realized that my thinking had weakened my immune system and probably the energy in the house for my son as well. And I needed to do something about that. And so at one point I was really sick. I was homeschooling him. And I read a statistic that only 10% of the people who were sick as I was ever got better. And I made a decision. I was going to be one of the 10%.
Oh, awesome.
And from that point on, I started to find the right information. So, and that threw me more into my hypnosis practice, my meditation practice, finding better feeling thoughts. And I started to get better.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information that you've taught me, that you've imparted to me about thinking and thoughts and the way you frame things, the story you tell yourself. There's an event that happened, but then you're creating the scenario around it. And then you take my mind and you switch it upside down and shake it really hard. And you say, well, some of the trauma might be a past life trauma that you're still working through. And I'm like, whoa, past life stuff. Because I was taught it's a one and done. You're born and then you die, and then it's appointed unto man to have the judgment, or what's appointed unto man to live once and then the judgment. That's the narrative that I was given. But as I continued to journey through this exciting world of spirituality, I realized that I'm a spirit being. I've always been here, I'll always be here, and I've had this journey many times.
Well, your energy, right?
Yeah.
And energy can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
And so when my father died, I went, what happened to him? I wanted to know where he went. I knew he wasn't just flesh and blood, that I'd interacted with this energy.
Yeah.
And so in spiritual direction, I was able to connect with his energy on the other side and have a conversation with him.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Really. It was awesome.
What's the circumstances of that?
My spiritual director, I said, I want to talk to my dad. And she said, okay.
Oh.
And she put me into hypnosis. And she set the scene for him to arrive, and he showed up, and it was very emotional. But the thing about emotion in trance is that it's one level removed. It's not like when somebody dies. It's a sort of a release. Remember you were talking about how safe and warm you felt?
Yes.
And so everything
Today I did a hypnotherapy session with Cynthia, and there was so much there. We're going to show you a clip of that in a little bit, but that's what she's referring to.
So everything that happens in a relaxed focus state is much less traumatic than when you're running it through your prefrontal cortex. It's like dreams. They can be upsetting, but if you really looked at what's going on in the dream, it should be pretty traumatic. And so your unconscious mind in a relaxed place sort of protects you from any of that grief. And so from there, I was having a particularly troublesome time with my brother, and my spiritual director said, oh, well, let's go into a past life and see what that's all about. And I always wanted to do one, but I was scared, that I was going to be Genghis Khan or something really awful.
Sure.
And my experience in doing past lives for other people is that most people have normal lives, right? They live, they work, they farm, they die. And I had this experience with my brother, and we were in competition, and he was in power, and I was trying to, get him out of power because he wasn't doing the right thing. And he won that battle.
Oh, wow.
And so then after I transitioned in that past life into heaven, or whatever you want to call it, the ethereal energy, my spiritual director said, bring his energy up and look at his heart chakra. And what do you see there? And I said, I see coal. And she said, I want you to see a little flame. Let's just spark it.
Wow.
And so we did. I saw that flame, and she asked me if I was willing to forgive him. And I said, well, yeah, sure, of course, because there's no right or wrong when you're in the energy, right? There's nothing to forgive is the experience. And so that was really enlightening. And over time, my brother began to soften. I did nothing.
Oh, wow.
He married a woman that sort of challenged his narrative about us and our relationship.
I mean, I've heard you framed it that if you can go back and change whatever that past life trauma was, you can actually heal those past wounds.
Well, you can, but we're not sure if past lives are real or they're imaginary. And because
they feel real to you at the time, right?
They do. They feel real because what the mind can imagine with a vivid imagination, the body is compelled to obey. The body doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. That's why movies get your heart rate up. And so if you're in a past life experience, there's no way to prove that that was a past life. But what it did for me is it allowed me to forgive my brother for the things that he did and was doing in my life now, and sort of gave me a context. And it also shifted my energy toward him. And as my energy continued to shift, and I'm working a spiritual program which says, no, you can't retaliate, no, you can't, do all those nasty things, his energy shifted, and he married a woman who challenged his narrative. And he went, at 53 years old, he said, I don't know why I'm mean to my sister. And he's been beautiful ever since.
Wow.
So is that the past life regression? Did I change that energy? Or did I change the energy in me between the two of us? Doesn't matter to me. Right? It changed. And the other, I think, really wonderful experience for people who are willing to play in the world of past life hypnosis is that you get the sense that as you leave the body, nothing terrible happens. You just feel better, right? You're old and you're tired and you're sick and you're laying in bed surrounded by your loved ones, and then you don't want to be there anymore, and then you feel great. And you get to leave in that life things that didn't serve you and take things that did serve you. And so what is that about? That's about focusing on what's right now. So I don't take my hypnosis seriously. It's a serious tool, and I've seriously helped a lot of people change their lives and change their perspectives. But I'm not going to say that that I can prove any of it because I can't.
So I had an experience today where I asked Cynthia if she would put me through some hypnotherapy. I had an incredible sense of a space I was in. We're going to play a little clip for you and give you a little bit of that context. I see a big purple space. It looks like it's like a space setting. See a white angelic figure.
Yeah.
It's tall.
Yeah. And how do you feel towards this being?
That's mutual love.
Yes. Does this feel familiar to you, this energy?
It feels comfortable.
Yeah, just feel that. And so this energy of love, personified and focused on you, is with you all the time, even when you are unaware of it.
So that was profound, because after I was in this purple ethereal space, I saw this white spiritual being entity, and I didn't see a gender. I didn't feel that. I just felt like this loving, like patient, strong being that was kind of a guardian watching over me. But I was like, had this energetic connection. And then you're like, well, merge with that energy. What's it like? And I was like, it just feels loving and unconditional love. So what's going on with my mind there?
So what happened, and you were a unique experience, and every one of my clients has a different experience. So what I did was I put you into a relaxed, focused state, and I told you to go to a beautiful place in nature. Now Dave has to do everything differently. And he ends up in this beautiful purple energy, feeling like he's in the ethereal space.
You're like, where's that? I'm like, it's like outer space, kind of like an ethereal space.
But
I
knew where you were because
okay.
I've experienced that myself, right? So I didn't want you to go into outer space because we could have had a UFO experience. Didn't want to go there, right? So then I introduced the concept of seeing a beautiful spiritual being. And I don't define that for people because their minds and their experience and their guides or connection with God, it defines it for them. And I thought it was interesting that you were seeing purple because that is the spiritual chakra color.
Oh,
so
I didn't think
that's
of that.
the energy of, of the sixth chakra and of the third eye. So I knew at that point your brainwaves had slowed down to theta, which you were very close to sleep. But that's that place where we experience ourselves as oneness, where your brainwaves are really pulsing very slow, but you're not asleep. And then you introduce the concept of a spiritual being and you experience that. And
I love the way you did that. So Cynthia gave me this, the presence of the brain waves. This is the way we started it off. And you started off saying, was it theta? No, beta. No, theta.
Well, so the brainwave,
You're better at it. You
the brainwave names are just the wave pattern that electrical engineers have given them.
Okay.
So it's the wave pattern of your neurons firing. And when you're asleep, it's 1/2 to 4 pulsations per second. So your brain's very slow when you are not conscious of anything.
Well, what's the top when we're
beta.
thinking? That's
it's called beta, but that's 14 to 21 pulsations per second.
Yep, and we're just right. Normal.
A lot
work.
of brain activity.
Yep, kids and work and cars and doing the thing, all this stuff.
So when you relax the body, the brain waves slow down, and you do that at least twice a day. If you wake up more often, you do it more often. Where you slow your brain waves down and you go through these certain stages, alpha and theta.
And then alpha was just like you're driving your car and you're just kind of thinking about something. You
out.
You kind of space out a little bit.
Yeah. And you go to your grocery list.
Yep. The grocery list.
While you're doing something.
And then you come down to
theta,
state.
which is 4 to 7 pulsations per second. So when I put you in a relaxed, focused state, simply by relaxing your body, your brainwaves slowed down to theta. And you went into that ethereal place where you could experience oneness. And then we bring you up a little bit when we ask the question of, do you see a spiritual being? Because in alpha, you can visualize pretty well. And then you saw it, but mostly you felt it because you're sort of a movement, body, kinesthetic type learner person. And so when you experience that love and that safety, and then you see it outside of yourself, and then you just merge with it. the hope is, or at least my experience has been, to know myself as that energy.
That's good. Wow.
Right? Because we are all the energy of consciousness and the divine.
Yeah.
And to know yourself as love is to know self-compassion, compassion for others. To know yourself as light is to increase your biophoton energy, that auric energy.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty powerful place. I don't stay there. I have to travel the roundabouts in Sedona just like everybody else. But once you know where it is, you know how to get back to it. So it's like a well in the desert, an oasis. Once you know where it is, you know where to go get the water and nourish yourself.
So hypnotherapy is not mind control. You weren't controlling my mind. You weren't giving me suggestions. You didn't make me cluck like a chicken.
Well, I could.
You probably could have. But the carnival games that, like, if somebody is watching a silly movie and they're like, he's a hypnotist, and then they'll make some comedy thing of them walking around doing silly things. You do have the ability to put suggestion in there.
Well, so let's just talk about stage hypnosis for a minute.
Okay.
Stage hypnosis is hypnosis, but it's done by people who also study magic and entertainment. Yeah. And so a stage hypnotist is really trained at sleight of hand and also at picking the people who go into trance the easiest. And as you're up there and he's telling you that, I don't know, you're a male and you're pregnant and you can't get out of the chair, and you do that, your conscious mind is just put on the side a little bit. But he's whispering in your ear, go deeper, relax more. And there are some people who are particularly susceptible to hypnosis. We call them somnambulic. I have that capability. And so a master hypnotist stage entertainer is going to be able to make people who would probably do that anyway do it easier and with more effort. And it can be quite entertaining. I have a friend who does that, and I took a class from him. He's a good guy, but I think it misleads people because it leads them to believe that they are under someone else's control. And you'll notice that stage hypnotists will often have a whole group of people, and he starts telling them to go back, telling them to go back to their seats, back to their seats. They either come out of trance or they pop out by themselves. And so it's about entertainment. And so when you give somebody a suggestion, either an anchored suggestion, which is neuro-linguistic programming, that they're not going to be able to smoke anymore. The unconscious mind accepts that, and the conscious mind doesn't argue with it.
Because you help people with smoking cessation. I mean, you've had some profound issues. In fact, I met a guy today that came in to give you gratitude and to do a little testimonial about how awesome his life is now.
Yeah, that was Wade. He smoked for a long, long time. So trance is a very powerful way to find the beliefs that you're holding about why you smoke, to see the cigarette as really the enemy that it is, to visualize it as a cartoon character or a poison. And you've agreed to put your conscious mind on the side. But if I said to you in the middle of that kind of a session, you're going to go down at the end of this session and you're going to rob the Circle K and you're going to bring me the money, you would have gone, no, I'm not.
Wow. If you had that kind of control over people, you'd be really wealthy, right?
Well, right. The government would be doing a whole lot more.
Oh, no, don't bring the government into this.
Right. So,
because they're probably doing it. I'm probably brainwashed right now.
If it was possible, they could do it. But hypnosis, it's not possible. You have to use drugs. And you're not unconscious. We don't go to that stage. So you're always aware. You weren't always aware that you were in the chair, but you were aware it was me and my voice.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was disconnected. I didn't feel like I was like on some space out. I didn't feel like I was out of control.
You weren't.
But I felt I was very relaxed, very comforted.
Well, and part of that is, I don't mean to sound braggadocious, but the skill of the hypnotist.
Let me tell you.
It's a big word, isn't it? Braggadocious.
But part of it was the fact that you know what you're doing.
Well, right. And so every client that comes to me gets as much or as little education about what hypnosis is.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time talking about their life, their medical conditions,
Yeah.
the medicines they might be taking, trauma that they've experienced, so that I can work with all of that. And by the time they close their eyes, they trust me, and I'm trustworthy. So you have to be able to trust the person you're working with if you're going to relax.
Yeah.
You have to remember half those people who are doing stage hypnosis have been drinking all night. So,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They've already lost their ability to discern a little
Defense
bit. Right.
is down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are really good at setting a presence of how you frame it well. You're like, you're comfortable, you're listening to my voice, but I remember you saying you're completely in control, but you're listening to my voice, and I'm going to guide you through,
Right.
if you will.
You're relaxed and alert.
I mean, at no point, it just felt very easy and very comfortable. And then I just felt that nice, and I just went with you, and I was like, yep, oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah. And I wanted to do whatever,
Right.
Wherever you were showing me. Look, what do you see? Instead of telling me you're in a purple space, you said, well, what do you see? And I went, I just kind of feel like I'm in this purple space.
But I have to say that the ability that you have to just look and be curious and say, I'm in a purple space, rather than, oh, I'm seeing purple. Oh, that can't be it. She must be something else, right? An openness to the experience, especially when it's interactive, like that particular experience was for you, is really helpful. And I want to say something else. I think the reason that I can create rapport is that I'm old and I've experienced a lot of things. So I've recovered from alcoholism.
Yeah.
I've been through grief twice. My brother has a vision handicap, so I lived in a circumstance with a family member who was handicapped. I was married. I was divorced. I was a single mom. So I have a whole gamut, and I've been chronically ill.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if it's age, it's experience you've had.
Right. Well, you get that with age, Dave.
Yeah.
When I was 26, I didn't have all that.
You have so much vitality, and you're so youthful. The time I've spent with you, getting to know who you are, you're not an old person.
Well, no, because I don't want to be one.
Yeah.
I want to be able to be energetic, which doesn't mean I don't sleep 10 hours a night, because I still do.
Well, you have a passion and a
learned to
zest.
take care of myself. Yeah. And it is my experiences and overcoming them, working through everything that actually has happened, and not going back to drinking, finding a way. And I'm pretty curious. And I'm pretty bold. You're either bold or you're stupid. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah.
And so I'm willing to try a lot of things. So I've been to an ashram and done Buddhist meditation, and I love spiritual entertainment. And so
That's good.
So that makes it easier for me to connect with my clients, because I've probably experienced somewhere along the line of what they're going through.
Yeah. You also are really good at energy, and you're a master Reiki practitioner, and you're unique in the fact that you use your intuition with that, and you use stones and gems, and you do some cool things. So Sweet Lady Gail got a chance to spend some time with you also, and we saw a little clip of that in the video, and you give a lot of depth, and then you start to perceive things through the veil. I mean, you got a lot of tools in your toolbox, Cynthia Beck.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's through the veil or if it's just through my brain's ability to read biophotons. What biophoton is information. And we know that light carries information, and that there is, I believe, a part of the brain that can perceive that when you're relaxed and focused and practiced at it. That's why I ask people to merge with it, so they can know what that feeling is. And so Reiki is the Japanese tradition of moving energy. And I had a wonderful Reiki master, astrologer, just a wonderful woman who understood all of this stuff that taught me advanced healing. And so when she did Reiki, it wasn't just laying on the hands and stillness. And so she showed us how to open up each of the chakras and how to use minerals, crystals, silicon, which is the transmitter. Radios had crystals, were the first transmitters of energy, and the first radios were crystals, to move the energy around someone in a very vibrant way. So with Gail, she was having a hard time getting her energy down through her bottom chakras and out to her legs. And when I felt that part of her body, it was cool. Up near her head, she had a bunch of stuff going on. And there was lots of prickly, sort of warm energy there. And so we took all of my quartz crystals and put them down by her legs. With the quartz crystals helping to pull that energy down through her legs as we worked on the chakras. And energy is like the body, it's moved with a thought. So if I think I need a glass of water, I find myself in the kitchen. I don't think, oh, I have to go get a glass of water, right foot, right foot, grab the glass, pour the glass. You're not doing that. You're just moving your body with a thought. And energy is moved that way. And so chakras are different every day, and sometimes they balance themselves different depending upon all the things that you're dealing with. And I like to have people interact with me on the table, so I put them in trance, interactive trance. And then that way, Gail could get a sense of what was happening in her own chakras, and after our session, she can balance her own chakras. So it's about teaching people about energy as well. And then, of course, I'm going to get a visual, and I'm feeling the energy around her body. And sometimes it's dense, sometimes it's wavy, sometimes it's hot. I pretty much know what that means. In our session with Gail, she was having a hard time getting her root chakra grounded to the earth. So she's not floating in the netherworld. And we did a wonderful little exercise with a vine that you drop down to a grid, but she was having a hard time making that connection. And so I just asked one of my energetic angels to come and help her do that. So I don't do it alone. We start the session with my guides and angels of the highest light and with Gail's guides and angels of the highest light. And
to that, give some of that perspective now, because you're like, oh, I sense you have a guide, a new guide. Ooh, she's kind of a grumpy old grandma guide.
So there was an energy that was kind of pushing at me when I was working around your shoulder, and I took a look in my mind's eye as to what it was, and it was a Native American crone, a very old woman who had mastered all of the energetic and earthbound healing modalities, herbalism, aromatherapy, gardening, and all of those kinds of earthbound things. And she was really pushing on me because she wanted me to get out of the way so that she could connect with Gail, because she was insisting that she was going to be one of Gail's guides. Later on that day, Gail had a reading where another very strong spiritual presence was also trying to be her guide. And Grandma was not going to be displaced. So, those are images that come to me. Are they real or are they Memorex? I don't know, but they seem to make sense to my clients. They seem to make sense to my clients. And so if somebody says to you, oh, you have a guide on your left shoulder and it's a big mountain lion, and I just go, okay, that's what you see, that's fine. I don't relate to that. Or, oh yeah, that makes sense to me for whatever reason. Because when it comes right down to it, you're the one who knows about your energy. You just have to kind of experience it, play with it, get to know what it is.
And you give people the opportunity to experience and to explore that, rather than telling them this is what it is and this. You're like, well, what do you sense and what do you feel, and then you help guide that. And I know you said it's because I'm old. I tell Gail all the time what I really like about a practitioner that's been around the sun a few times is they have this depth of insight. They have this. They're a deep well that they're able to draw from.
And, you know, everything that I have done in my spirituality has been motivated by pain.
Yeah.
I don't do anything because it's good for me. I do it because I'm suffering doing it the other way, right?
Yeah. How many times you bang your head against the wall until you realize, oh, I shouldn't do that anymore?
Well, and I have a little seasonal affective disorder. I run by the sun. And so November, December, there's not much.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to let my head go into the dark places, in the complainy, grumpy places. And, you know, if I do that, I just feel worse.
Oh, you don't. You do. You get into that. Oh.
Right. And there are some days where I'm
Yeah.
tired and I've been given a lot, and I'll just go to bed and read a book or not get up for 24 hours. And that's
Wow.
fine.
Yeah.
That's recharging my batteries.
Yeah.
But if I get up every morning and let my negative head get a hold of me and run with those thoughts, I'm miserable all day long.
Yep.
And I make everybody else miserable too.
Yep.
And so I do practice what I preach. I work at it. I get up, I do my meditation. Sometimes I write, sometimes I don't. I always have an Abraham Hicks tape playing while I'm getting ready.
Yeah.
I try to set the tone of the day, because if not, my mind attacks me.
Yeah.
So it's not about perfectionism. I have not mastered anything. I work constantly to stay connected with love and to do the things that make me feel happy and light, and to teach the things that I've learned. Gosh, if some of the pain that I've gone through can keep you from going through some of it,
Yeah.
I'm happy for that.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how once you've gone through something, you see someone else about to do what you had just come through, and you're eager to tell them, oh, hey, I've learned that if you hit your hand with a hammer, it's going to hurt. So
Yeah.
I might recommend. Now, they still might choose to go through that process and, oh, you know what? You're right. You told me, and sure enough, it hurts when I hit my hand with a hammer.
Clients can be like kids.
Yeah.
You know, you tell them what to do and they don't do it. And then they come back and say, I need another session.
Yeah. Well, that's good for business.
And it depends on where my cash flow is. If I take them, or I say, you know, another session's not going to help until you do the things that I suggested in the first session.
Yeah.
So, and some people really are in dark places, and I'm willing to walk with those folks.
Yeah.
And sit with them and hear them out. I'd say, Dave, that 90% of what I do is listening, because people just don't have a place where they can be heard without being in therapy or, you know, wearing out their friends.
Yeah.
And so just being able to listen.
Yeah, but you've got a toolbox when you listen. So when they're like, here's a bunch of stuff, blah, 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 you go, oh, have you ever thought of? And then you start to give helpful solutions to things they're going through. Because I know a lot of times when I complain to my friends, they're like, huh, you're right. Your life does suck. That's awful.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you don't make me feel better. You know?
That feels good for about 30 seconds. And then it's like, wait, what do I do in this awful life? Oh, poor me.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know. Sucks to be you, dude. Hey, the game's on. I'm like, oh.
Sucks to be you.
You know? But if I say something to you, I'm like, oh, I'm struggling through this. And you're like, oh, really? Well, have you thought about that? And you teach me how to reframe?
Well, for example, I had a client, a young woman that was having some struggles with depression. She was also smoking way too much marijuana, and her mother was probably overly involved in her life. She was in her mid-20s, and she'd had a traumatic experience as a kid, but it wasn't, you know, it's not, none of that stuff is not overcomable. You can overcome it.
Yeah.
You might have to work at it, just like somebody who's, you know, had a bad leg, that their leg is not working right. You have to work at it.
Yeah.
And she was doing really well. We worked together all the way through the spring and through summer, and she was doing really well. And all of a sudden her mother calls and says, I need an emergency hypnosis session. You know, she's not doing well. And so I said, okay, fine, have her come in. And of course, Mom explained it to me and didn't sort of let her talk. But I said to her, she said, well, she was doing fine until October. And I said, well, have you noticed that she has a hard time October to January pretty consistently? And her mother said, yeah, now that you say that, I have. And I said, well, she's got a little seasonal affective disorder that's triggered her depression. And guess what? It's going to go away. And now I'm going to tell you some of the constructive things you can do, taking your vitamin D, taking sugar out of your diet, exercising. Exercising is the number one thing that helps with depression.
Yeah.
Getting a light to sit next to. Man, she just perked up for two reasons. She's not doomed to be depressed. I gave her some specific things that she could do. And the next day I saw her, I ran into her where she works, and she looked like a different person. And so it is that experience in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
I made all the mistakes myself.
Well, of course. I do think that I've learned the most through the mistakes that I've made.
Right.
And I know what serves me and what doesn't serve me.
Right.
But I like that you're a non-judgmental space for people. You have your opinions and you have your likes and dislikes for your person, but you're not a person that says, oh, no, you can't or can't. You're just like, well, how does that make you feel? And you just give a place for that.
Well, that question, how does it make you feel, annoys me, because that's what therapists do. And so the thing about hypnosis is that we'll go into the nice relaxed space and work on whatever it is that you're needing to kind of work with. And then I'm going to give you some suggestions that you feel better, that you're going to have a good day, that you're going to feel confident. So nobody comes out of my office feeling like they do when they come out of a therapist. I don't care what you've come to me for. I'm not going to waste a good trance state in helping you feel better, because that's really all we ever want is to feel better. And we think that buying something or drinking something is going to get us there. When we recognize that we have the power to do that ourselves, you're going to feel better when you come out of a session with me.
So people can come to you as come and try something one time and see what, and there can be a modification or something there, but then they can come to you multiple times on a regular basis because there's always something they're able to take from that.
Right, and some people live outside of the Sedona area, and so we do a session over Skype. Hypnosis is done with your eyes closed. And so that works really well. So you don't have to be right in Sedona to have access. The other thing I wanted to say about, being open and non-judgmental is that when I was in counseling, the counselors have this whole thing about, I don't tell you anything about my life. Of course, they're dealing with really crazy people, so I really understand that. But my therapist had some biases that I found out about later that put the context of my therapy in a little different light. And I wish I had known that. So I could take some of the things that she said and say to myself, well, that's her experience. She happened to be a lesbian. And I didn't find out about that until I ran into her in town and she was with her wife. And so when I was struggling to find a marriage, she was like, well, that's not that big a deal. Well, not to her, because she didn't want to have kids. I did, and I was young. And so in my practice, if you're dealing with something that I've been through, if you're dealing with alcoholism or drug addiction, I tell you that I'm a recovering alcoholic. Because you have a right to know that I may have a bias there. And you're intelligent enough to make a decision about what it is I'm saying to you. I do not believe that AA is the only way to get sober. I think it's one of the best ways, but it's not the only way. And so I work with people who might want to do it differently. But I will always tell you what the prejudice I know about are, so that you can make a informed decision.
How do people get a hold of you?
You can get me, the easiest way is on my website, cynthiabeck.com, or by email at cynthia@cynthiabeck.com, or you can get me on my cell phone, 650 722-1956.
You sure you want people to call you on your cell phone?
Everybody does. This modern technology, energy, I can hit decline.
Yeah, that's good.
So, no, I try to get back to everybody who leaves a message within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And if I'm not the right practitioner for you, I will refer you to someone else. So
that's good. So I had this wonderful experience going through the hypnotherapy, and Cynthia put me into this nice, calm, relaxed state. And I thought, man, if she would do this, like come over to my house every night when I'm ready to go to bed, and I would fall asleep immediately. It was so good. So I don't know, maybe you got to record that or something for me.
Well, there's lots of tools out there, lots of hypnosis sleep tapes and all of that kind of thing. I don't think I can help people learn to sleep with hypnosis, but I don't like to teach them to use hypnosis to sleep, because all you're doing is using hypnosis to get into delta.
Well, I didn't feel like it was a hypnosis. I felt like it was just a relaxing.
That's all it is.
You just helped me relax. And so I'm in the chair. I didn't feel like it was uptight or anything.
No.
But I was like, oh, and you go, drop the shoulders. And I was like, oh, okay. And you feel the elbows, feel your wrist. So I want you guys to experience this. If you're driving your car, turn this off and don't listen to it, because we don't want anybody running into the median and whatever. But if this is something where you have always wondered what it would be like to hear some hypnosis and to hear a master hypnotist be able to give you some relaxation techniques, Cynthia, would you do us that favor?
I will. We'll do a quick progressive relaxation, and this is the easiest one to do. So you're going to close your eyes?
I am. Let's do it.
And so just close your eyes and take that nice deep breath. And remember that when you're using the breath for relaxation, the relaxation comes on the exhale. So just exhale as fully as you can and let your shoulders drop. And now I simply want you to imagine that your body is a clear glass container with an opening at the top of your head and openings at the bottoms of your feet covered with corks. And now allow this container to be filled with a beautiful colored liquid. Doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter if it blends colors. It doesn't even matter if you don't see a color. Just listen to the sound of my voice and think of a color that's soothing for you. And just allow it to fill this clear glass container all the way to the top. And now simply imagine that the corks on the bottoms of your feet simply pop off. And this beautiful colored liquid begins to drain ever so slowly out the bottoms of your feet. And as it drains, it takes all the stress, all the tension, any anxiety right along with it. Just let it float down to your neck and shoulders, relaxing all the tension in your face. And just let it move down your torso. Whatever speed you like, just let go of that tension and stress. Let it move down past your hips and your legs, letting go, releasing all the energy that keeps you tight and taut. Just letting the legs become relaxed. Well, it's all out the bottoms of your feet. And then just take a moment to scan this beautiful glass container that is your body and see if there's any of this colored liquid holding to the sides that represents any stress or tension that might still be left. And if there is, just let it go now. And in this moment of calm relaxation, your mind quiets, and your body and spirit balance. And just this few minutes of calm and quiet, you'll find yourself refreshed, alert, ready for whatever task is ahead of you. And when you feel ready, taking all the time you need, you can simply open your eyes. Better.
That's awesome. Oh. You're good. You should do this for a living.
Well, I'm trying to make a living at it. So,
I love what you are doing. I love your work. I love that you're being a light worker, being of service to people. I encourage you to reach out, get a hold of Cynthia Beck, cynthiabeck.com. She's amazing. I like to close the show by the guest giving us the thing that they've learned on their journey of their human journey. What is that one thing, if you were saying, like, I know you were in a trance the whole time, you didn't hear anything I said, but this is the one thing I want you to take away from my journey. Give presence to what that is.
We talked a little bit about this earlier, and that is that consciousness is everywhere, and that consciousness is love. And so really at the basis of all this energy is the energy of love. And love is all there is. If you're telling yourself a story about something else, then that's a story. And all ice eventually melts. And so everything that's constricted and tight and angry and hurt is just condensed love. And eventually that love will untwist itself.
Wow, that was awesome. Cynthia, thank you so much for making your home available. Thanks for being on the show.
Nice to have you here.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
I'm David Marsh, and you've been watching Exploring the Human Journey on YouTube as a video and listening as a podcast. If you would like to help continue the conversation, please consider supporting us by visiting patreon.com, where you can support us on a monthly basis and get extra bonus content. For as little as $1 a month, you can make this show sustainable and help continue spiritual consciousness. You can also help by following us on Facebook and Instagram. For more information about the show, find us online at exploringthehumanjourney.com.